All right, so I wanted to go over the big, beautiful bill and what that means for normal people. One of the things I think it's important for all of us to recognize is that knowing financial policy is really important, especially if we want to stay ahead of everything. And when you look at financial policy, it's going to have a big impact on a large sector of people. And just understanding where things are going, what things have happened and how they're changing or how they might not have changed, I think is really important. So when we're looking at Trumpsky's big, beautiful bill, first of all, we got to look at the Tax Cuts and Job Act from 2017 was set to expire, and essentially what ended up happening is that if you made 11,600 bucks to 44,000 bucks, somewhere in that range, you would have been taxed at 12%. It was going to go up. It was scheduled to go up to 15%, and now it's just going to stay at 12%. Okay, so it's staying where it had been. Same thing if we're looking at 44 to 95,000 bucks, you'd be looking at 22% tax rate going up to 25. It's going to stay at 22%. Okay, and then if we're looking at 95 to 182K, we're going to be going from 24 to 28%. It is staying at 24%. And then once you get 180 to 230, that would be 32 to 33. It's going to stay at 32. And then we're looking at 230 to 578. They're paying a 35% tax rate. That's staying there. Okay, so that's going to stay there. And then we're looking at that 37 to 39.5% if you're making 578 G's a year. 578 G's a year. And you're going to stay at 37%. Now, I think it's important that everybody out there recognizes that we're not entitled to just live here for free. Okay, we're not entitled to be in this country for free. It's the greatest country on the planet. I've been to 6 different continents. I've been all over the world. I just got back from a trip. I wanted to film this as quickly as possible. And one of the big things I'll say is that you got to pay taxes so that we can have defense around us. Okay, so we got defense, we've got debt. We have to service our debt, which means pay off our debt at least to some degree, hopefully. We have to look at healthcare. What's our government plan for healthcare? We have to look at infrastructure and how we're going to be handling even business, stuff like that. And then even looking at elderly and poor people. Those are the 5 sectors that I sort of look through. What is the purpose of the business, or what is the purpose of the government? And then the government's job is to collect revenue and to be fiscally responsible. So even though I am in support of paying some taxes, that doesn't mean that I want you to pay so many taxes out your nose while the government goes and just blows money on dumb stuff and we don't even ever question it and we don't even think twice about it. And that's the one thing that pisses me off with this bill, is if you question it and you bring up some thoughts like, hey, this might not be the best thing, everybody gets mad at you. So I wanted to bring that up, starting off with, for normal people, what those tax rates are. Now, the next thing, if you look at 2017, real GDP did improve during Trumpsky's first term. However, not enough to cover the expanding debt. It didn't cover any of that deficit from the previous campaign, from his previous run around in the presidential seat. Now, when we're thinking about him and some of the normal stuff that he was running off of, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, what ends up happening is that if you make under 150K, if you make under 150K and you get $25,000 on tips, you get a deduction. Okay, so let's pretend you make 150K, which would be great, and you get $25,000 in tips. That can get removed off of your salary of 150K down to 125K. That's what your federal income tax would be. So that's a deduction on your tips up to making 150 G's. Now, another thing, the overtime pay deduction is up to 12,500 bucks. Okay, so that's a thing. Another big thing is that he is keeping a large standard deduction, which is very, very favorable for normal people. A large standard deduction is very favorable for me and you. Absolutely fantastic. Now, if we look at the salt stuff, okay, so which is state and local tax, okay, that was set to go back to $10,000. Okay, so it was going to go back to $10,000. This is essentially mainly property tax, but state and local taxes. And you can deduct that off of your federal income, taxable income. So if you make up to 500K a year, you can still, it's going to stay at 40 G's instead of dropping back to 10. So that's another favorable thing to get revenue, theoretically, to get revenue back into the government. There's a lot of issues here where it's like, is revenue really going to go back into the government? Even though we will see an increase in GDP, it's not going to match what the deficit is between the budget and between what we're overspending on or not spending. You know, we don't have the money. So now the next thing, defense. A lot of money is going to go into ICE and is going into some defense stuff. We're thinking about like the border patrol, stuff like that. So building the border, building the wall, or making the wall a little bit more sturdy, I guess, in whatever way you want to look at. Now, some of the issues here, anti-immigration, anti-illegal immigration and all this thing, these things can have a negative impact on population growth, and that's one thing that we're struggling with, which he does end up trying to cover in the child tax credit, which is, it was supposed to revert back to $1,000. It's going to go up to $2,250. So that is something that will help most people who are having kids, and it's a goal to try and entice people to have more kids, along with his crazy Trump accounts, which is just wild to me. So if you have a child in the next 4 years, you get $1,000 put into an account, into, let's just say you put it into a Vanguard, right? And then you can add $5K a year. And then when the kid's 18, that kid can have that money. Now, that's along the lines here is that the immigration I look at in the same light, ironically, as these child tax issues, because I'm concerned that immigration is going to slow down substantially, which is, in my opinion, will have a negative impact possibly on manufacturing and things like that, and possibly on costs and other things along those lines. So those are some things to keep in mind. As a normal person, with the wall, with the Golden Dome just to start the work that they're going to be doing is going to cost like, you know, $80 billion or whatever. We're looking at $50 billion for the wall. And what's interesting with stuff like that is, who's going to do it? Probably Lockheed Martin's going to have some impact. Palantir's going to have some impact. So those are companies that you can have in the back of your mind if you're in a good enough financial situation that you can capitalize on that. Now, when we're looking at Social Security, this goes back into no tax on Social Security. It's a $6,000 deduction off of someone's income if they're on Social Security, okay, 65 plus, and they make under $75,000 a year. They get that $6K deducted. So it's not exactly how Trumpsky said it was going to be. And I think that's important, is that, like, I don't get conned by a lot of this stuff. Now, I think it's still beneficial for most people. The thing that's going to suck, though, SNAP and Medicaid. Okay, so there's two things here. If SNAP and Medicaid are getting cut a little bit, one, there's something that I think it's going to end up hurting states like Kentucky, Oklahoma, Mississippi, West Virginia is going to get slaughtered. A lot of rural hospitals get funded by Medicaid, and because there's going to be a decent amount of cuts to Medicaid, I think that's going to be a negative thing. Now, they're claiming they're going to be sending $50 billion over the next 5 years to these, or 10 years to these rural hospitals. We'll see how that goes. Now, the one thing with SNAP, which is food stamps, and with Medicaid, is that we're seeing, basically, if you have a kid, if your kids are over the age of 14, okay, and you're able-bodied, you're capable of working, you have to work 20 hours a week to get Medicaid or to get SNAP, okay? Now, it's the same thing. Now, if your kids are under the age of 14, you don't have to. You can still, you know, let's say you are not disabled. You have a kid who's 7 years old and you want to stay home. You can't afford to send them to childcare or something like that. My cat's just meowing like crazy. These are things that they're factoring in. Supposedly, I have some questions about how it's going to be judged, that you're able-bodied or not. But they are saying, look, you got to work 20 hours a week. Okay, you got to work 20 hours a week to be able to get Medicaid or SNAP. I don't think that it's that awful. Okay, I truly don't. I don't think it's that bad. I think oftentimes, if you're able-bodied, if you can handle it, if you're not putting your family at risk, I think it's a good thing. Okay, I just want to throw that out there. Now, when we're looking at things that I will be directly impacted by, looking at stuff from an infrastructure or business perspective, we're looking at manufacturing, 100% deduction in the first year of a new building. If I want to build a new gym or a new facility or a new, let's say for my business, a SaaS company, we want to build a new office, right? I do have questions. Does it have to be a new building, or can it be an existing building that's new to us, and then we get that 100% deduction? Because that's important. And this is where it's important for the government to be favorable towards businesses as this next thing. R&D costs, okay? R&D costs are deducted 100% in the year that they are incurred. This is a huge thing, especially for a SaaS product, okay? We do a lot of software development. Okay, if we know that we're gonna get this 100% deduction off of our revenue, guess what? We might spend a lot more. And then guess what? If you spend more and you expedite the process of your SaaS product or whatever product it is, and in turn you get that investment back and you start to make more money and your taxes are favorable, you're probably gonna keep doing that, and you're gonna be more successful as a business, and the people that you're investing in to help develop the software, in my case, it's gonna be positive. So that's cool. Now the EV tax credit, $7,500 is removed after September. Here's the thing here, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me at all. What bothers me though, is the tax breaks, tax stuff that they're doing for fossil fuel companies. Don't play, don't have your cake and eat it too. Like here's my whole issue here, is that we want to talk about the free market and we want to talk about all these things, and then you go and do that? Come on, dude. Like that's my whole issue with all of this stuff, is that there's always some backdoor bullcrap that goes on where it's like, so EV taxes and renewable energy, which is, in my opinion, probably a good way for us to not be as reliant on other people. And this could be wind, this could be solar, it could be hydro, it could be nuclear. Now you're gonna take that back and fossil fuels are the way that we're gonna be rolling. Whatever, I think it's a bunch of baloney. Now, CBO, which is I believe it's a nonpartisan, basically they check on government spending. A tax foundation is actually a website that I go to a lot to see how the government is really budgeting, what are their scores on their budgeting. It's a 501(c), nonpartisan. They're saying that there's going to be $3.4 trillion cost over 10 years from this that's going to be added to the debt. So that's quite a bit of freaking money that we got to think about. The benefits are going to be probably 0.7% growth on GDP. Besant says he doesn't believe the CBO or the tax foundation. Those are some things that I just say, I'm like, I don't know, buddy. So the issue I have is that this bill sort of reminds me of like when you graduate from college and you get your first job and you're making 75 grand a year and you just blow your money on dumb stuff. Or even if we're looking at something like somebody getting a new credit card. Hey, how are you doing, Jake? Somebody gets a new credit card and they just want to go blow it all on that. So there's like this issue of lifestyle creep, and what this bill reminds me of. I hope this helped everybody out there understand what the big beautiful bill is. Peace.